Hey guys, welcome to Guys in Hockey Talk. We're back with another episode in season 4, episode 29, brought to you by the Great Sports Empire Network, who we are partnering with, and JR Web Designs. We're happy to be back for another week. I'd like to introduce you to my co-host, Pavel the Cat Insider.
How's it going, Evan? How's everyone doing tonight? I hope you're all having a wonderful Wednesday evening. If it is Wednesday that you're watching, it could be another day. Welcome again. We are here every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Make sure you give us a follow on Facebook, Evan on Revenev on Twitter, on YouTube. We love connecting with you guys. We got stories. We got a website coming. It's going to be exciting. We're going to feature a lot of cool stuff and all the archive shows we've done in the past. And we've come a long way, Evan. But Evan, how are you?
I am doing fabulous. It's, right now is the pinnacle time of the season where all your junior clubs, NCAA, United States Premier Hockey Leagues, all throughout Canada, the States, all Europe right now over. So we're just wrapping up playoffs in some the different European countries. I'm not going to go into detail because we got a guest that we got to bring on in just a couple moments here. But yeah, so it is the most entertaining time for a hockey fan, I think. But we will come back and talk about a little bit more of everything that we have here because we do not want to hold our guests waiting. So if you are following today, we love you to come check out and follow us, not just on Facebook or YouTube, but actually subscribe. Because if you subscribe, it goes to your notifications and it's easy to be able to follow or do a post follow. All right, I'm going to go ahead. Are you ready to introduce our first guest? Yes. I believe we've asked them to have a drink ready. So let's go ahead and do this. We welcome Jaydlin Spooner. She played for the University of Windsor Lacers or Lancers, Jaydlin? How do you say it?
Lancers.
It's just like you lance the tumor. Okay. Welcome aboard. How you doing today? Welcome to Guys in Hockey Talk.
Good. Thanks for having me, you guys. I'm really excited to talk some hockey.
Well, we're excited to have you on the show. Oh, Evan, come on. We're excited to have you on the show. He clearly knows nothing about hockey. He can't even pronounce the name of the team, but that's fine. Welcome. So we appreciate that you agreed to this. I don't know what Evan promised you, but clearly he's not going to deliver. But I guess for every guest that we have on the show, we always ask, what is it that was there a moment in hockey that brought your passion for the love of the game or got you involved that you watched or somebody showed you? And I know a little bit about it, but I wanted you to share with the audiences.
Yeah. So I think I have two major moments that I kind of always go back to. First is my older brother. He's 6 years older than me and he played juniors before going off to med school. And my exposure at the time was just watching the Rock'em Sock'em tapes when I was about five years old. So my first time, and I fell in love with it, and watching the games, the Canucks and stuff. And I was just so hyped up watching it. And then I was actually in ballet first and I hated it, absolutely hated it. They'd have to drag me to ballet, kicking and screaming. And then my mom finally sat me down. She's like, you have to do something. What do you want to do? And I said, hockey. And I could see the life kind of drain from her eyes. And she was like, not another one. So then I'd go out on the ice, right? And I didn't know anything else about hockey except from the Rock'em Sock'em tapes and Canucks games. And I didn't know how to skate, didn't know how to do anything. And I would just stand in the middle of the ice and just cross-check the boys who would come near me because I didn't know how to do anything else. I thought that's what hockey was. So that's kind of the first introduction to hockey was through my brother and watching games all the time. And then I think what my true passion for hockey and what it can do for a community is I went to the Vancouver Olympics, the gold medal game. I was right downtown Vancouver. We watched it in a theater because we couldn't get tickets.
Oh, wow.
But it was amazing. I was 11 years old and my whole family went. And it was incredible to see how an entire city, it didn't matter what race you were, gender, age you were, everyone in that one moment when that goal went in, everyone was celebrating. You'd go down the streets, everyone's high-fiving. And it just I think that's what's so powerful about hockey, especially in Canada. it has the power to bring so many people together when it's at its best, right?
Well, it's interesting you say that because I fell in love with hockey when I was like 9 to 11 years old, but nothing was close to it till I was 17 and Team Canada in the Rendezvous series with Mario Lemieux and Wayne Gretzky. But it was interesting because the whole thing with Russia coming together and playing, it was to put politics aside and let hockey be at the forefront. So you saying that, right, it just makes so much sense. Maybe we did not plan for that. Let's talk a little bit about international tournaments, if you're cool with that, at the very end before we do a wrap-up. And maybe a little bit about the Rock'em Sock'em stuff also as we tip on. Maybe you can help me a little bit. So I was able to pull up a little stuff. You tell me what about this. So
yes.
I apologize. I was stalking your Facebook to find some pictures, and you did happen to have some. Thank you. That we can show everybody viewing. But definitely we can see when you're really young. So this must be your older brother in the top mid center picture. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's after he rifled about 60 road hockey balls at my head. So, yeah, that's him, Jesse. Yeah.
So, did you want to play goal, or was that something where he actually just said, "Hey, put this stuff on. Mom picks up stuff for you," and that's the end of the story?
Yeah, no, it's actually crazy. I think growing up, I was always a goalie, obviously, because my brother wanted to practice, and then I actually always loved scoring goals. Like, I love being a player, and they just threw me a net one time and I just had this, I don't know what it is. I couldn't tell you, but it's just this natural ability. I just was good at it off the bat. And it actually kind of made me mad because I wanted to be a player so bad to score goals. But then I ended up falling in love with goalie about a year after playing it. I was like, oh, this is actually hearing when you make a big save and everyone in the crowd's going crazy and you're you know what I mean? You're the final kind of factor. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man. Okay, so a lot of the goaltender stuff then happened just because of your brother and stuff like that, right? That's what it sounds like.
And then also a lack of a goalie on my minor hockey team kind of led to me having to take that spot.
Well, I was going to ask you because it means you either get to be a hero or you get to be a scapegoat, right? When you're a goalie.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I think especially as kind of the higher up you get in hockey, you take on the scapegoat. You kind of internalize it, right? I was always hard on myself because I wanted to be the best. I was a perfectionist. So you kind of really take that to heart. And yeah.
So I'm hoping that there was a role reversal for a bit and your brother got to play net and you got to shoot some ball or maybe pucks at him, just kind of a payback to be well, this is what I experienced, But let's talk about kind of the preparation that goes into becoming a goalie and getting yourself mentally and physically ready for game day. I know goalies are very voodoo, or that's kind of what is talked about. Is there any rituals you have, or what goes on with preparing for every game?
Yeah, I know you hit the nail right on the head. I was actually super superstitious. Sorry, I didn't mean to say super twice like that, but I was really always into superstitions and rituals. So I can't even name all of them. I had at least 50, and a lot of them I wouldn't even be conscious that I was doing. I'd eat the same meal at the same exact time before games, every time. And I have a routine that I would do every time I come to the rink. I would sit there and listen to music for 10 minutes, and I have a timer on my phone for everything. Then I'd go and do juggling for 10 minutes exactly. And then I would go and do my special warm-ups away from the team. It was insane, honestly. Looking back at it now, I'm oh my, everything has to be routine. And I think in the beginning, it was kind of more toxic because I would get to the point where if I didn't do a certain thing, I would start worrying I wasn't going to have a good game or stuff like that. But then I worked with the sports psychologist when I got to university to the point where that stuff was just kind of an add-on. I could still play well without doing it. And that took a lot of kind of working through and being confident in my own abilities instead of relying on how many times I throw a ball against the wall.
Right. So maybe talk a little bit more. So you actually, you and others on the team got to use a sports psychologist. What are a few things? I mean, you don't have to be specific if it's too personal, but what are some things that actually helped that a sports psychologist? Because everyone's always asking this question. at the highest of levels, or over in Europe, wherever they're playing, or in junior, or they're playing in well, they don't call it Pee Wee and Midget anymore, but that's another story. But but yeah, what is it that they actually do? Like, what are some practical things you did?
Yeah, I think it's different for everyone. First, like I can't speak to what my teammates did, but I remember sitting down with, her name is Brogan Probert, actually, Bob Probert's daughter in Windsor, Ontario. Yeah, and she runs a practice here, and our whole team, really, really cool experience. Got to have her for 2 years as our sports psychologist. But anyway, and for me, the biggest thing was that my mind sometimes I'd get in my head during games, like, especially when I wasn't having a lot of action, and like my mind would start to like kind of fill in with like outside thoughts and worry and like self-doubt. And so what we came up with were like key words that I would like repeat until those, like, my mind was clear. And it's crazy. I can't explain how it works, but like for me, it was like top of the crease. Like that would be what I would repeat to myself when I felt my mind start to wander. I'd say top of the crease, top of the crease, top of the crease. And then eventually that's all you can focus on, right? And it like helps you stay focused in on the game. And there was a lot of stuff like that, kind of like how to clear your mind in like milliseconds, right? Because you got a whole game, especially as a goalie, like you got to stay focused for that whole 60 minutes. So you need to find ways to, how are you going to keep your mind clear, right? Because everyone's human. You just have to work around those kind of pitfalls.
Well, it's interesting you said that, because I know. So for me, I didn't have a sports psychologist. I'm sure my co-host could have helped me a lot if he had been with me back then. But
no one can help you.
There's a few.
Jay, you're fine, Evan. There's no hope for him. No sports psychologist in the planet or in the galaxy could help Evan.
So one thing I do is I go take my net and I turn it around during the warm up. I turn it around, but I put it at the top of the crease area, and then I do my slides backwards because I didn't want no one shooting at me yet, right? Because I don't want nothing going by. And then I put it back in place, and then they can fire all they want because I want them to hit me, and I actually had to tell them, go ahead and fire away, but I'm not trying to stop. I'm just getting my crease ready. And then you're talking about top of the crease. So my thing is sometimes my angles were wrong. So I always had to drop back center and then go out, right? So if a guy was getting ready across I sometimes would back in. In fact, one time I backed in to come back out, and they shot the puck early because they obviously picked that up. You know, you let the stupid shot in from the blue line. You're like, oh, that must sieve. But then I was thinking about the words you said, because I used to use, okay, I'm calm, I'm cool, I'm collected. I use those three things, right? And I actually saw a YouTube of Mike Richter talking about it. So I tried it, and man, it helped. It really did. Just those little things, right?
Yeah, and I think another major thing that helped was also, like, before the game, I'd be like, the puck doesn't, even if it's, especially with the big game, you'd be like, the puck doesn't know that, right? Like, the puck doesn't know it's a big game. So, like, just keep, like, you got to, like, block out the kind of anxiety that you put on yourself, because the game's the same no matter, like, the situation, you know what I mean? So, yeah, definitely goalies are, I think we might keep sports psychologists in business sometimes.
So you're playing, and I'm going to go in two-part question, but initially you're playing the game midway, you have timeouts, you're talking in between periods. Are you definitely communicating with your defensemen and your team, your forwards, about what's going on? Are you letting them know where the puck is? Are they talking back to you? Are you kind of barking orders and be like, you got to get it, here it is, or I'm passing it around the net, whatever it is? Is that what's happening, or? Yeah.
And I think during timeouts, actually, or like anytime we have something, I'm always off in my own little world. I think I talk to my defense before the game, and like at team meetings and stuff off the ice, I talk to them, let them know like what the other team does if they dump the puck in a lot. I actually hated handling the puck. It was my biggest weakness. So my defense, I would tell them, I'm like, listen, like, it's not my strong suit, so you got to prepare for that. Like, I might mess up there, but I think during the game, especially, like, I'm always talking. I'm always saying, guy in the slot, or like, I'm reading the play, letting them know what's happening, right? Like, if a defense is sinking low, and I mean, players all the time get caught watching the puck, right? And so when you're a goalie and like the puck's in the corner and there's a battle on the boards, obviously the puck isn't a threat. So then you can take that look around the ice and see what's going on, and you see their defense cheating and sneaking low, and then you say, hey, watch that guy out there, right? So it's just, I was always talking always talking in the D zone. I don't really talk to the forwards much unless they're not where they're supposed to be. But yeah, I
gotta yell at them, tell them where they need to be, right? Because the coach may not be able to get his voice across. So good game, bad game, you're always going to have hiccups. And at the end of it, I'm sure coaches are going through tape. What are some of the ways that you prepare for the next game? So you're like, oh, there was a 2-on-1, and maybe the defensive loss, they were puck watching, as you said, but you're still trying to stop it. Maybe the puck hit the post, whatever it is. How do you deal with that going to the next game? Because you talked about mental preparedness for the first game, but like working on and building on within a season.
Yeah. I was totally kind of a hockey nerd when I'm playing. So I would kind of take a day. I'd take Sunday, do nothing. That's my day of rest. And then I would always review the tape first. Like, I think I was probably the first one logging in a lot of the times on that website that our team had. And I would filter it out to just look at my saves. And even the saves I made, I'm like, oh, like I could have done that better. And so I think my coaches, especially my head coach, really, I communicated that with her. And I said, no one's going to be harder on me than like I am, right? Like, I don't need like the head coach like barking at me because like I kind of know, you know what I mean? Like, you're telling me something that I am thinking. And like, what really helped me was talking with my goalie coach. We talk like once a week and we go through the film, and she saw the same things that I would see. And then we do drills to fix that for the next game, right? So it'd be kind of just like slow correction and just chatting with my goalie coach.
So one question that came in here that I just had text to me, actually. It's from a friend over in Quebec. So the question here is, and this is maybe this is because of the whole band fighting thing, but the question was, have you been in a scuffle or some type of fight while you're in your goalie equipment?
A scuffle. I've definitely thrown a few blockers, probably mostly when I was younger. Definitely not in university or anything like that because, I got some emotional restraint. But I think when I was younger, I think I racked up a couple penalty minutes from blockers, but I never got into like a full fight with a player.
All right. Let's go to this is kind of a two-part question that we have for you. So first of all, how did you get? So you played in Olds with their college team. On the I believe it was the women's team, correct?
Yeah.
Or is it co-ed? I'm not sure. The Broncos.
Yeah. Women's.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I'm just to verifying, so I have my facts right here. So first of all, so the two-part question is, so how did you get on to play hockey in Olds with them? And then the second part was, so enrolling at Windsor, did you get a scholarship to go, or did you just enroll, get accepted, and then have to do a walk-on tryout? How did that work? If you can answer both those questions.
Yeah. Okay. This is kind of a long story, and I'll try to keep it relatively short.
No.
Going into Olds, I had actually been recruited for University of Toronto, but unfortunately I didn't have the best grades in high school. I was, just not a very, very good student. And so I couldn't go to University of Toronto, unfortunately. And then I got asked to play for Olds, which had an upgrading program. So I said, okay. And my goal was always to play USports. And so I said, okay, I'll go there for a year, get my grades up, and then I'll go to USports. So I did that, and I did really well at Olds, and it was an awesome experience. I still talk about it. I was actually talking about it the other day, and it was just amazing, especially just being small town Alberta. Like, there's nothing better than that, right? Yeah. And so coming to the end of that year, I didn't get any offers to go to USports, even though I had a pretty successful year. And then I was like, okay, I'll just go back for another year and see where it takes me. And then I decided actually to transfer to NAIT, to Northern Alberta, with Deanna Iwanica at the time was coaching there. And she was interested in me. And so I was like, I'd like to transfer because she had a history of moving players up to USports. And I said, that's my goal. Can you help me with it? And she said, absolutely. And then that summer, she got hired to go to University of Windsor. And I was packed and ready to go August 15th. I was leaving to go to Edmonton on August 19th. And she calls me and she says, Spooner, I have a spot for you on University of Windsor. I got a spot for a goalie. and I'd like for you to come with me. You have 40 hours to make a decision. I was like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, I have my bike, like my flights were booked. I had a house going on. Like I had a house ready and I just kind of sat down with my mom. I couldn't pick out Windsor on a map, to be honest. No clue where it was. And I was like, do I go? And she was like, you have to go. Like, that's been your goal. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm going. Like August 16th, I called Deanna. I said, all right, I'll go. Like, I guess I'll cancel my flights. And I booked new ones. And I found a house on Kijiji in like a day. And I was suddenly, a week later, I was in Windsor, Ontario for the first time. And I was like, I don't even know how I'm here right now. But then I had a great couple years there. So it was definitely a whirlwind, but well worth it.
Wow. That would be a bit of a thrill ride, huh? Like you're taking some chances by, saying no to one and then heading somewhere else too, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I ended up Olds and then I ended up on Windsor in about 4 months. So.
All right. So let me go back just for a moment. What do you think? It's interesting. I know when we interviewed goalie Cassidy Sauve, one of the things that we talked about is like sometimes everything goes in, and another time it's just like you're able to see you can track that puck so consistently. Mm-hmm. So a beach ball will go in one day, and another day everything looks like a beach ball to catch. How? So what? Now I know you kind of mentioned it, but when you have a really bad game. Right. In your mind, again, this is perspective, though. In your mind, you're feeling frustrated with your play, whatever it is, and you're leaving. Is there something you do after to make sure that, you get out of that place so you don't stay there? I mean, I think a lot of people are going to be asking this because there's a lot of goaltenders that they see at professional levels. They get enough. They can be a great goaltender. And then they're a sieve. It's just like, yeah, try playing the position. It's not so simple, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I think there's two kind of ways that I did it. One was superstition. So I'd wash all of my kind of undergear. I'd change my tape job because I wouldn't change my tape job like if I'm playing well, never. But then as soon as I play like a kind of off game, change everything, right? Wash everything. That like to me in my mind, that's like a reset. Okay, you're ready now to like restart.
Awesome.
And then another thing would be I think it would be, if I remember correctly, it would be me going into the next week of practices and that first practice back, I would treat it like a game. So like I would do all of my like kind of pre-game focusing techniques and I'd like make that practice my next game. So that way when you go into like an actual game, you don't feel like you're going straight off of that loss, right? Because you took that practice to reset and like it's just kind of like it's a mental game 100%. There's nothing physically that's changing, right? It's just the way you're thinking about the game and a lot of it's self-talk too, right? Like 100%. A huge thing with me was self-talk and just saying like I'm gonna bounce back, like I'm gonna stop this puck, like you know what I mean? And you can't have any negative talk because then it's going to turn into 2 games. And then after 2 games, you're like, oh, is this going to be forever? Right? Like it feels like forever. So it's just so much mental games going on.
So you talked about knowledge and you talked about kind of like preparing for the games. When it comes to your hockey IQ, do you think there should be more of an emphasis in analytics? Because I know that there's that community, or is it more in the eye test where you're kind of feeling out how it is in terms of, like you're feeling good this game, and like Evan said, everything's a beach ball and everything's an easy save, or is it like, man, tonight's or this period is not my period or this moment?
Yeah, I think the way I see it is, I might be a little bit old school, but I think analytics are a nice supplement to the eye test because hockey is just such a too many variables. I think for analytics, like the best player in the world, like Connor McDavid, can have a bad game, and analytics are like, you know what I mean? Like they're skewed like in one way. And I think there's so much value to understanding a player's potential rather than what's being shown on analytics. For instance, I think there's a player right now, I think McCann on
Jared McCann on Seattle.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's going off for about 40 goals right now. But I remember I follow a couple like Instagram accounts that take account of analytics, and they had him ranked like 6% overall, right? And now this year, he has 40 goals. So it's like, I think there's definitely analytics, like save percentage is like huge, right? And like there's those major analytics, but I think some people put too much stock on it. And I think there's an element, what makes hockey so fun is that a lot of it is unplanned, right? Like you can't measure everything, but that's just my own opinion.
So something interesting when you mentioned that, I was just thinking about, if we go to basketball, I remember back in the Michael Jordan days, he was in the zone. Everything he touched was like magic, and we just call it, you're in the zone. A goalie, Patrick Waugh, in the zone, right? Carey Price, in the zone. Another game, they totally blow it. It just kind of, and for those that don't know, Jaydlin I actually went to school with her mom when we were in grade 9. And I was just thinking about the zone. So we had this small little auditorium upstairs in the building of this private school. And we played floor hockey for intramurals. And I was never good out, but for some reason I was Mario freaking Lemieux, man. And I was lighting everybody up for the week. I don't know how I did it, but it's just one of those weird things, and I found that even with goaltending. It's just like for a while you're just there and then you're not. It's really, I think, a confidence thing, isn't it?
100%. Like I honestly think like, I mean, it's kind of cliche, but like 90% of the game's mental and 10% is physical when you're a goalie, right? Like you can talk yourself out of a good game and you can, you know what I mean? But it's so hard to talk yourself out of a bad game. It's, you know what I mean? So when you're in the zone, that's what I mean. Like you can't have those thoughts. Like your mind has to be completely clear. I don't think about a thing, right? And the whole game goes by in a blur because I cannot, like, as soon as you start thinking, like you're done. You can't think. And
you always wonder if the best players in the world that people watch and they see on TV, that seem stoic. We talked about this years ago. The Russians were very stoic. Now they're very boisterous, right? Yeah. It's opposite now. Canada was very boisterous back in, the 60s and 70s and early 80s. Now they're very stoic. If you look at, interviews, you just see the Crosbys, the McDavids, right? I remember Tretiak as a goalie just at the end of his career. And it's just like a goal went in. It's like no goal ever went in. It's like he forgot about it. And Mika Kiprusoff, I'm just thinking behind, I caught the attention, Pavel, with the shirt behind you, with Mika Kiprusoff in Calgary. The guy just looked like you scored a goal and it's like, yeah, who cares? And he was ready to play. And a superstar, Grant Fuhr, was like that in Edmonton in the 80s. I'll stop the next one. I'll stop the next one. That's more important. That kind of a thing.
No, exactly. And I think, unfortunately for myself, I struggled with the the body language sometimes because I just cared so much. And like, I'd get so upset when goals would go in, but like, I got better at it over the years, of course. But I think that passion, sometimes I commend goalies who can stay stoic because especially when it's a big goal, you're like, oh, like, come on, like I really wanted that one. But I think I always wore my heart on my sleeve when I was playing because I just had so much care and passion about it that it was hard for me to kind of keep that in. So not most stoic goalie.
So now, are you practicing on potentially scoring as a goalie as well, and then potentially celebrating like crazy afterwards so that we can all see in the world of Instagram and anywhere else in the world?
I would love to. Like I said before, my puck handling is not my strong suit, but I know that if I did, I would selly so hard. I would do the heartbreaker, Connor Bedard selly, Patty Kane selly. Like I am not. That's the thing too with not being very stoic is that whenever we'd win or something, I'd always throw a selly in. Like I would, you know what I mean? Like I just loved winning and I loved having fun and I just think celebrating, I know there's kind of mixed reviews on sellying after a goal and stuff like that, but I think like that's part of the fun. Like I think if people crack down on it and they say like, oh, be humble, I'm like, it's a game. You know what I mean? Like that's half the fun. Like I very, very strong stance on that one.
Imagine playing a game of Monopoly, right? You win free parking and you don't celebrate you got it. It's just like, come on, get real, man. If you can't
we expect players to have personality and sell the game, and yet we get very upset when they show any kind of character or true colors or any kind of flamboyancy of being like, hey, like this is me, right? Like Austin Matthews has a bit of that style and flair. He doesn't care, right? He brings he brings that swag, and you want that. You need that swag. I mean, you're playing at an elite level, so you really have to bring it, which is really cool.
Well, we got two last goalie questions. Then I want to come back to just a couple little things. So first of all, now in today, so we've had conversations on our show with different people, and a lot of people, of course, are professional NHL fans. That's what they know mostly. So they see goalies, doing well, not doing well. You just mentioned about analytics and stuff. So what would you tell most people in just understanding a goalie? How would the average fan be able to tell if a goalie is really good or not? There's different ways. Without me actually saying what I think, I'd like to get your take on that.
Yeah, I actually do have. I think it's a foolproof way, and I told my head coach this too, because she was trying to scout a goalie, and I said, go to the worst teams in every AAA league, and you look at if that goalie's save percentage is above a .910. If it is, take her. Like if you look at the worst teams, and if their goalie has like a 2 or below goals against average, I think that's the best marker. I think a lot of coaches sometimes go to the top teams in the league and they pick the best goalie on that team. And I think that's how it kind of ends up with a disappointing result, because especially if you are scouting from a team that isn't quite as good as they want to be yet, kind of a struggling team, and you're going to the top teams and you're taking their goalie, that goalie only gets 15 shots a game. That you're not going to get a high quality, the goalie that you need at that time. So go to the worst team and try to find their top goalie, and that's going to be your guy, because they're used to getting 40 shots a game, right? So I think a lot of people sometimes have that bias of the best goalie is the one on the best team. And I strongly disagree with that.
Well, and actually a good example of that this year, and I think people are going to be quite shocked come playoff time, frankly. I think that everyone's got to be careful. I think they're overestimating what's happening with the goaltenders down in Boston. And for that very reason, hey, they are extremely good goaltending. But I mean, if you think about it, like, so even goaltending, Korpisalo right now is doing really good in Los Angeles. And so I actually believe the same. Actually, that's interesting. I haven't talked about looking at the worst team, because if you keep it up, because you're going to have 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, breakaways, you're going to have the quality of shots far better than outside perimeter shots, right?
Exactly.
But Korpisalo, but they play a 1-1-3 system, right? So they're playing with three back, covering that neutral zone on the back end with one pressing and one staying neutral. Well, of course, you're not going to get the same shots on you, right?
Yeah.
So the shots are going to be more outside perimeter shots and stuff. Whereas, when you got teams that have a lot, like, and I'll just use the Oilers, that's where we're out of Edmonton, and a guy like Stuart Skinner to be able to keep your in the 9-13, that's really tough. You have a lot of high quality chances because your players keep taking chances up front, right?
And what's interesting too, you bring up the Oilers, and I want to mention Jack Campbell here, because I actually always had reservations about him as a goalie. Actually, when he was in Toronto last year, and everyone, like, I'm from Windsor, so everyone cheers for the Leafs here. and
you tell, because we have a lot of Campbell conversations. So
and last year during playoffs, and I was saying to everyone is obsessed with Campbell, and I said, don't, like, they can't re-sign him. Like, don't re-sign him. Like, look at, like, how he plays. I'm like, the only it's because the Maple Leafs, actually, their defense isn't as bad as everyone says it is, and their team is really strong. So all the shots Campbell was getting, like, he was shaky making them. Like, the saves he was making were, like, shaky. Like, he would make a 5-hole save, but his, like, hips were turned around to the boards almost. Like, you know what I mean? And, like, all of his saves, I was like, oh, like, I'm not sure if that was the right, like, the technique is kind of off. He's a very what's the word?
Technical?
He's an unorthodox goalie, right? Like, the way he makes saves is very not technically sound. Like on the other end of the scale would be like a Carey Price, right? Like he's very technically sound when he makes saves. And so that's what I kind of mean by you got to be careful valuing a goalie based on stats. Yeah, I think you got to watch how they play, and you got to watch and make judgments based off of that, right? And that's kind of what the Oilers did with Campbell, and that's how they're in the hole that they're in right now. In my
that's
opinion.
interesting you say that. So the Oilers really were going after two different players. So they were looking at Darcy Kemper, who they tried to get a trade the year before he went to Colorado. Not that he had a great season in Colorado, but he definitely had a good defense, and his numbers weren't great.
He's had a better season in Washington than he did in last.
What's that? But it's about the same.
He's had a better season this year.
I think. What's his save percentage at this year? Do we know?
Oh, I would have to look it up.
Hey, look it up while we're chatting. That'd be really good. Yeah, you're the man. You're the insider, dude. You find that. Come on, Felix. Let's do it. Felix the Cat. By the way, he is called Felix the Cat because he is like Felix. He has cat-like reflexes to get on the internet and get information for you.
Love it.
So here's the thing. Do you see Darcy Kemper? Maybe you didn't follow him as much. Kind of in the same mode, because if they were going, here's the thing. There's only so many goalies on the market. There was talk about Georgiev, who ended up going to Colorado. They could have possibly gotten him, but he didn't have enough experience. There was talk about Husso, but again, he didn't have a lot of experience, whereas Campbell at least had a lot more. Like you're saying, it seems like some things were hidden, which might be why they didn't go that way. But then on the other hand, I don't know why the Leafs went after I got Samsonov, but I didn't get the Murray thing with all the injuries.
Me neither.
Yeah, so would you have gone? Who would you have gone with if you were, GM of the Oilers and you're searching out a goal in the summer? You wouldn't have taken Campbell, obviously.
No, I wouldn't have taken Campbell. I have a liking at the time. I really liked Georgiev, actually. Okay, I remember him and Shesterkin were battling it out for a time, actually, in New York. And I remember there was a time when they didn't know which way they were going to go, Georgiev or Shesterkin. And so knowing, like, he's doing well in Colorado. He's in my fantasy team, so I know a little bit about Georgiev. But I think that market for goalies was so tough, right? Like, it wasn't very good, to be honest. But I think Husso or Georgiev would have been my pick, simply because I kind of have the same fears about Kemper, because I remember following him when he was in, was it Arizona? Arizona, yeah. And Minnesota too, I believe. And I wasn't really keen on how he played either. And I know Husso struggled in Detroit, but I mean, Detroit doesn't have.
I got Kemper's stats.
Okay, what do we got?
I was a bit wrong, but he's played 53 games. He's got a .910 save percentage this year in 53 games. He's got 6 shutouts, whereas last year he had 5 with Colorado, and his save percentages was .921. So, of course, a better defensive core in Colorado than Washington, and especially losing Orlov this year was a big loss.
I don't know. I don't know if I actually agree. Washington, until the trade deadline, though, I don't know if I think they're that bad. But they still play 2D back, though, right? They actually don't.
Goalies can be voodoo, and maybe you could talk about the Jaydlin, but goalies to me seems voodoo. One year you're having an excellent season, you could be a Vezina candidate, and then next year, you're struggling, and systems do play a factor. The team plays a factor. A lot of these changes, personal things may be happening. I know that sometimes when goaltenders in the NHL are expecting, like their wives are expecting, sometimes that, if they're not in the mindset, right? But maybe you could talk about that a little bit, or about your Darcy Kemper assessment.
Yeah. I think Campbell was blaringly obvious to me. I can't say that I'm the master of kind of differentiating good goalies and bad goalies. Because like you said, I think Husso, Kemper, and Georgiev, honestly, I think it's just luck of the draw between those three. You could have thrown, at that point, it's a flip of the coin. You could have thrown any three of those goalies into the Oilers. And as much as you think, this goalie, he's the guy, you never know, right?
Korpisalo was the other one that was talked about in Edmonton. Great.
Yeah, I like Korpisalo actually a lot. I really like Korpisalo. He would have been a good one. But I think goalies are voodoo. Like, you see it all the time. I mean, I still think the Campbell decision was a head scratcher, but other than that, I mean, I think it's the luck of the draw that Toronto has been getting these performances out of Murray. Like, that was a total gamble, and no one knew if it was going to go well. I think Samsonov, I actually heard of him like 5 years ago, and I knew he was going to be a good goalie because he was pretty high up on prospect lists back then. But, I mean, no one thought Murray was going to do this, right? Like, so I think there is an element. I think there's the gap between good and bad, I think is pretty telling. But then once you're in the good category, you just gotta, I don't even know. I'm not sure what you do. I'm not sure how they do it.
Maybe Toronto, we don't know this, but maybe the professional scout for goaltending was former Vancouver Canuck goalie Troy Gamble, and he took a gamble. No, I'm just that's
it's because of that connection with Sault Ste. Marie and Kyle Dubas and Matt Murray playing. That's
there was a connection.
He likes his Sault Ste. Marie guys. Now, the one interesting fact that you bring about Washington and Kemper, maybe you can comment on this, guys, is the fact that they got rid of both Samsonov, who's now in Toronto and having a solid season, and Vitek Vanacek, who's in New Jersey, and they're technically number one because Blackwood has struggled this year, even though a year or two ago he was seen as a potential one of the best goalies. You know, not everyone can be Price or Vasilevsky or even Shesterkin now, who took a while to get going. But I mean, what is Washington doing, getting rid of two solid goalies and then going with Kemper, right?
Yeah, I remember there's actually I'm not sure if the cat wants to jump in, but I know the goalie coach, he left with Holtby. I'm pretty sure the goalie coach from Washington went to Vancouver, and he's the one that grew Thatcher Demko. And as soon as he left, the goaltending in Washington started to go downhill. So I think a good goalie coach is so important to success. And at that NHL level, you're not really teaching them anything new. You're trying to mold their game, right, and add to the game to play with the system that the team is playing with. And so maybe there's something not great going on with the goalie coach in Washington, and they need a new face. But I think it's really important. I think it's an overlooked thing, goalie coaches. I think it needs to be invested in way more, especially in minor hockey. I think that's actually the problem going on with Hockey Canada not turning out high-level elite goaltenders, is that they're not investing in goalie coaching, right?
Well, I was going to mention, so if we actually look at goaltending coaching, if you go back to the Rangers and see what they've been able to do with Benoit Alara, I mean, so he's been bringing out like tons of different goalies over the years, right? And it really, I know that's always been a thing about Dustin Schwartz. He came out of the USports and worked with Edmonton, and people have said, well, you know, did the goalies get better? But now I think with Stuart Skinner and totally being mentored and under the tutelage of Dustin Schwartz, it's telling you that maybe some of the habits that the other guys struggled with, they aren't being taught. So either Schwartz is changing or just players just have their issues, you know, with it. So we need
you have to know that Carter Hart also trains in the offseason with Dustin Schwartz, who now is having an excellent season with Philadelphia on a team that's really struggling. Like, I know they're defensively minded, but they're not exactly like, you know.
Are you serious? He trains with Schwartz in the summer?
In the summer sometimes, yeah.
Okay, so I find this really weird. Sometimes we go off the rails, by the way, Jaydlin.
Go ahead. Go right ahead.
This is what's interesting. He is hired as an Edmonton Oilers goaltending coach. When trains somebody else in his side job as consulting or something in sports psychology, goaltending coach, if he's training Carter Hart, he's going to know his habits. He's going to know all those things. I'm shocked the Edmonton Oilers, for how much control they have, they would even allow that. So
I don't know if it's like one-on-one. I think it's just kind of like they come into the rink and like.
Yeah, but I would still think you know what it's like. We couldn't even get. So just so you know, Jaydlin, we actually, the way some of the NHL teams work, we had a gentleman who actually was a play-by-play announcer for the Northeastern team for the women's. His name, why am I forgetting? Alex Thomas, and now he's a Hartford Wolfpack play-by-play. So he came on our show. He got the first year when he got the job. And then it was interesting because this year we couldn't bring him on because he couldn't get it passed by Chris Jury, because Chris Jury said, because we're not media credentialed, he's not allowed to come on the podcast. But there's a lot of control with NHL clubs, right? And so, it's kind of weird. Can I just wrap up this one piece and then let's talk to her about the Rock'em Sock'em before, because we're definitely going to go into overtime here. So I do just want to mention, now I know you're not going to toot your own horn, but I do think it's really important to mention that when it comes to statistics and I'm just pulling some different stuff aside here. So when it comes to statistics and stuff in Windsor, now you guys look like you didn't win a lot of games. Is that correct?
No, not in the first year. Not in the first year at all.
So I'm just, hey, very good. You got onto elite prospects, by the way. Excellent. You just got to tell them to give you a pitch or go send them one.
I know.
So save percentage, you had a 9-15 in 9 games that you had, and then you had a 9-10 in 12 games. And then in 21-22, that's when you played 5 games that year, you had a 9.45. Interesting. Without a winning record, but yet you were still able to hold to that. That's incredible. That's really good.
Thank you.
Now I know you did. I kind of set you up because I figured that's what you would say. But guys, definitely don't look at a team and say just because they're losing, blame it actually on the goalie all the time.
Yeah, I actually it's funny. I've always been on teams that have struggled, and I actually find it more fun that way. I actually struggle a lot when I don't get a lot of shots on net. I love getting more work. I love like the 30, 40 games. Like those are my favorite because I just get bored. Like it's a 15-shot game. I'm like, this isn't fun. And like ever since the Seals, that's my AAA team growing up.
Okay.
And I was it was a struggling team. We got better during the end actually, but not the worst team in the league by far. But I'd always get 30 to 40 shots on net, and it was the best time of my life. And I had, I think, pretty good stats. I think like 2 goals against average and like a 930 or something. But yeah, I definitely not sure if those stats would be as good if I was on a number 1 team or something like that.
It's funny. I think Pekka Rinne takes after you because he also played a similar style where he had to face a volume of shots before he felt comfortable and settled into his role. So he clearly learned from the best, obviously.
Yeah, I know. I taught him everything I know. So
okay, we're going to get you the answer. So Zylstra is asking here, who is going to get the Jennings Trophy? Do you have a ponder of who you think is going to get it? Before we
Can you remind me the Jennings?
Oh yeah, the Wayne Jennings for the shared goaltenders.
Oh, got it. Okay. Well, if you look at wins, they're probably going to give it to Ullmark and Swayman, unfortunately.
Okay.
I just think the team is so good that probably just going to, even though if they didn't, in my opinion.
Who would even come close?
Excuse me?
Who? Actually, yeah, I agree with you. Like, who would even come close? Pavel? Who'd come close?
I'm trying to think who the backup is for Islanders because it's Sorokin and who's the backup?
Sorry, I'm jumping in.
Maple Leafs? I mean, the Maple
That's
Leafs
what I was going to say, Maple Leafs, yeah.
Murray and Samsonov, and now Wool has come in and played a bit. I'm trying to
think. Their save percentage is pretty low to be able to be jumping in.
I guess the one runner-up would be Minnesota with Marc-Andre Fleury and Lehkonen, right? Or sorry, Grandlet, or what's his name? What's his name?
Oh, why am I blanking now too?
Yeah, I can't think of his name. Minnesota, G, maybe?
Zylstra is suggesting Minnesota, and actually, you know what?
Yeah, Minnesota,
Gustafson and Fleury.
Gustafson, that's what it is.
Yeah. Okay, and Kyle out of Boston. So he brings up, he says it's Ullmark's. Now, you're referring to the Vezina, I believe, Kyle, right? When you say it's Ullmark's. Or are you saying Ullmark's and Swayman as so I mean definitely I think that Ullmark is going to win the Vezina. That's my opinion. And I think Ullmark and him will actually win the last week. Okay, so we are into the last 9 minutes of our show. We had planned to change up here 15 minutes ago, but this has been fun. It's been great. We keep saying we need to coin this 2 guys in overtime, so we might just go pay for that website, pay for that brand before we go live for our website. So, Kyle, you're right, man. We're going to have Kyle on soon, guys, so we can talk Boston. We're going to talk who we think are our Final Four. We're going to have 4 guests on around there. And by the way, guys, if you are following, just because I want to hold on to Jaydlin for just a moment, next week, our guest coming on live with us is former New York Islander Robbie Schremp. So he'll be jumping on and sharing. So we're going to pick his brain. He loves talking strategy. If you guys don't remember, he was the guy that was famous with shootouts and stuff like that with the lacrosse moves. Before the Michigan was the Michigan, there was the Robbie Schrent lacrosse move. So excellent to have him on next week. So it's going to be great. Okay, so you said you kind of got excited when you saw the Rock'em Sock'em hockey. I know Zilster's been on some other shows, so she has lots to say around the rough stuff and the hits and the checking. Obviously, we're not talking about fighting right now. We're talking about good, solid hits. So what's your take on what's happening around hockey? Because some people, there's two camps. I'm going to let you comment, and then we're going to wrap and let you go. But just give us your comments on what you're seeing at the professional level that everyone watches, and what do you think needs to happen? Should there be changes, or is it doing exactly what it needs to do?
I think that physicality is always kind of hockey's calling card, right? Like that's kind of why a lot of people watch hockey, right? And I think it's similar to football in a way where like you can't really get rid of the physicality. Like it's just, I'm not sure what the game would morph into. And I think there is a level of staying safe as well. Obviously, with the new concussion studies and stuff like that and long-term effects, like I think there's a balance to be had. And I think not fully getting to fighting, I think fighting has its place to kind of self-policing the game. But I think obviously as entertaining as the full line brawls are, I think there are health factors that we need to protect the players, right? And these are still human beings at the end of the day that have families to go home to, that want to grow old. So I think there is a balance to be had. I'm not fully against it, and I understand the consequences of being overly physical and the concussion. So I guess right now I think it's in that sweet spot. I know I heard the Spit and Chicklets guys talking about it on their podcast, how they think that it's in the perfect middle ground and the players are protected and there's still physicality. And I have to agree with that. I think going any further, like I've heard that the Quebec League is banning fighting completely now. And exactly. And I think it's the same thing as, sorry, I'm kind of going on a long-winded answer and I'll wrap it up really quick right now. But I think even in junior leagues, I know in my mom's VIJHL league, they got away from visors and went into full face shields, and actually head injuries have increased and it's actually gotten worse because players think because there's a shield, they don't need to protect other players as much because they think, oh, you know what I mean? And there's no more fighting. So players run around and slash guys in the shins and they slew foot because there's no repercussions, because all they're going to get is kind of 5 minutes in the box. Okay, you're done. Like, you know what I mean? And I think fighting has a place when it's done right and when there's respect, right? Obviously, don't wail on the guy when he's already down. Like, there's a base respect and to send a message. And so I guess it's kind of a morally gray, not fully against it, not fully.
Okay, so Jaydlin, we'd love to have you back to actually talk more on that subject with a roundtable of guests. And let's talk about even the policing yourself, what's happening, what people are seeing, because it's just not one league. It's not just junior. It's not just US, Canada, Europe. It's everywhere. This is hockey. And I think it would be exciting. So it sounds like you're a passionate fan of hockey. And as you're working further, so I just want to say thank you for joining us today. It's been a blast. And unfortunately, I'm not sure if the check's in the mail.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me on. This is actually great. I was nervous to come on, hence the Pink Whitney drink. But you guys made it really easy to talk, and it was a blast. So thank you very much.
Let's definitely do it again.
You don't want to cross Jaydlin because she has a blocker, as you guys heard earlier in the episode. She's got a bigger stick than everyone else. She will ream you out in between a timeout. She will let you know what's up, right? She is juggling before practice, okay? So I do want to ask one more.
You're gonna scare everyone away.
I've been building up. I do want to ask, because you are such a hockey enthusiast or geek. I don't know what's politically acceptable anymore. But do you have a favorite and or a mask that you think is like out of this world? Because I don't know if you get to design masks at the university, but there's one that you've seen in your history, not the one that Evan's pointing to, that you would like, or if there's an artist that you would definitely want to work with in creating a cool mask design.
Yes, I do actually. I actually just saw it. So this was a really well-timed question because Freddie Anderson's stadium mask, if you pull
Yes.
it up, it is incredible. And I watched it. It was a TikTok of someone making it. And oh my, like the detail was incredible. And like close up, like he did it all by hand, right? And I don't know his name, unfortunately. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know there's a couple mask artists that I've looked through because I wanted to get mine done, and then I saw the price tag and the team wouldn't cover it, and I said, not in the cards, but definitely I'd say Freddie Anderson's Stadium Series mask from this year is the best.
I'm sorry, I'm calling out University of Windsor right now. You guys better get on this and provide the grant for this mask to be done. This is
right?
a scam.
This will be a gift that you give Jaydlin for her years of service.
Yeah.
I know. No, I'm just
all the
kidding.
best luck. Thank you for taking
Thank you.
time in the middle of your exams, and again,
Yes,
let's talk before we wrap up our season in the summer. We always end right after free agency, and then we take usually 6 weeks off. Otherwise, we run about 50 podcasts a year. So again, thanks for coming on. I will be in touch, and
Awesome.
we'll talk more around this. Thanks so much, Jaydlin.
No
for joining
worries.
us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys. See ya.
Right. That was so awesome, man. Well, I can't
That
wait
was
to
fantastic. Ooh, my lights.
Oh man. Okay. Hey, so if you've been joining us here, we didn't give you a lot of NHL talk, but Jaydlin has a ton of stuff. We just wanted to talk because we don't often get, number one, it's getting women on the show, which we always want to promote women's hockey. I am still telling you guys, within the next 5 to 7 years, you are going to see a totally different change when it comes to women's professional hockey.
I think you already are. It's just, it's not as visible in the media, but it's there. It's happening.
Bigger. It's getting bigger. It's getting recognition in the league. It's going to be getting a television contract that works well. But it's got me thinking with streaming world going on, hence even where we are right now. If the streaming world opens up, you just pay for a stream like you do for everything else onto your TV network. Man, boom, you're on. If you charge me, say $100 a year to get all women's hockey on a stream, I'm in. Right? I'm going to pull it up. As long as I can get it onto my smart TV, I'm going to be able to do it because I definitely like to watch hockey actually up on the screen unless you're blowing it up from your computer. Right?
I don't care what kind of hockey it is. I will watch it. You just put it on the TV and I will be there front and center.
Hey, I do want to make mention for everyone that's listening right now. So if you guys recall, first of all, actually, before we go out, let me just make mention every Wednesday, follow us on YouTube, Twitter. You may be following us there right now or on Facebook, or you might be on one of those channels and you are following us through the Sports Empire network. So, hey, thanks to our partnership with the Sports Empire. Follow it. I actually encourage you. I actually use YouTube a lot for our show, so I can blow it up on my 85-inch screen TV and watch our shows afterwards of me and Pavel looking totally stupid in front of you guys every single week. And
I believe you only mean me, but that's okay. I'll take it. I'll take the compliment.
But, I really do love the YouTube piece, and I do actually at this point, I'm encouraging you guys, no matter where you are, almost everybody easily can get that. Not everybody likes to be on Twitter. Not everyone likes to be on and Facebook. And unfortunately,
because it's such a civil and respectful place.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's but if you like to follow us on Twitter, where can they follow us, Pavel?
You can follow Evan at Revenev, or you can follow me at hockey_2. And we would love to connect with you. We're there daily. We're chatting. We're giving up our day jobs just to chat hockey with you guys.
Yeah, exactly. Can I had a bunch of stuff. We'll talk more next week or change some things around. There is so much stuff going on, and I don't want us to keep going because we've already gone a couple minutes over. I just want to send condolences. So Matev Mishkov, who I actually, as you guys know, on my Revs list early on, I have as number 2 on having the best hockey career. Please understand, this list is not about NHL. It's about hockey career. Whether Mishkov comes over, stays in the KHL, even like someone like Kaprizov, all his stats that makes him a complete hockey player. You don't have to always play in the NHL. Some players choose to stay close to family. Think of it, just because it's the NHL and you're North American and get to see things all the time. If you're from another part of the other side of the world. So Mishkov's anyway, so condolences. His father is no longer with us. So he's going through something right now, and there is an investigation. He was found in a pond. So the details are not there. It might be Marty. And so, I mean, we don't know what's going on. And interesting enough, just before the draft, we know he signed with the KHL, but just with things going on in the war and the uncertainty, does this change things for Mishkov? And so I like to talk more next week. And one of the guys we're going to talk with, and just let you guys know when I'm talking about draft picks, is Robbie Schremp. So we're very honored and privileged to have Robbie Schremp joining us next week. He so graciously is going to give of his time before he heads back to Europe. He's been playing hockey over in Europe ever since he left the NHL. He played a lot in the AHL and the NHL. Formerly, I knew him when he was drafted by the Edmonton Oilers originally. Followed his career, was really rooting for him. Amazing player, but he's a really incredible analyst of the game. And so, and also someone had to deal with rumors around hockey. When things get said about you, whether you follow it or not, it can actually affect your career. It's actually ridiculous. And people
100%.
need, as we say on the show, right? Let's be respectful of one another.
Yeah, 100%.
So, all right, buddy. Give one last thought.
I'm excited for the playoffs coming up in less than 2 weeks, and we're going to do our own predictions. We're going to do a little bit of a group challenge. We'll be in, and I have something special planned for our fans from this upcoming weekend. I may or may not be in Ottawa watching a game, so hopefully I'll catch you guys there.
Yeah, catch us live. Check out especially on our Facebook. He will make sure you either post
Facebook and YouTube. It'll be on YouTube as well.
Okay, you're going to throw it up there too. And/or he's going to throw it up there live. So whichever way, you're going to see something possibly, maybe not, coming out. So, hey, again, it's been a pleasure. The pleasure, as Jack Michaels of the Edmonton Oilers and Sportsnet always says, the pleasure is all mine, Pavel.
Yeah, and happy Easter to everyone out there celebrating. Remember, keep your sticks on the ice.
And your heads up. Cheers. Have a great one, everyone. Oh, hey, before we go, one last note. You ready?
Yes.
Why am I delaying? Happy birthday. No, I'm just joking, guys. I just wasn't all set up and ready to go out. Goodbye.